All right, hey Vikings fans, welcome in to another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
We're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer, talking about the Vikings.
Absolutely. And on episode 78 of the Skol Hop podcast, which is still crazy to think, tonight we tried a mega cake stupid beer, or sour, I guess, from ReUnion Brewery, and it ended up being pretty interesting.
I liked it a lot. Definitely will seek this out again. And for the first time in quite a while, we reconnected with an old friend of the show, Dustin Baker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was too long. I think it was almost a couple of months since we talked to him before. But we got his takes on the Sam Darnold situation, Cooper Kupp situation, and really just some intriguing Vikings free agent prospects this offseason.
Yeah. So wherever you are and whatever you enjoy drinking, grab a cold one and join us.
Skol.
Skol.
All right, we just want to say thanks to show sponsor Big Top Ventures for sponsoring today's episode 78. We're doing it, Ev. We're doing it. We're here. But yeah, thank you, Big Top Ventures. Our contact with Big Top Ventures, I'm pretty sure, is going to be in a Mexican or Jamaican all-inclusive while he's listening to this episode. So
there you go.
Yeah, I hope you're living it up on the beach or by the pool. If you too want to go to a Mexican or Jamaican all-inclusive, just reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures. You can do that by sending an email to Big Top Ventures LLC and just tell them, like, hey, I heard about this on the Skol Hop. I'm looking to go on an all-inclusive adventure. And Big Top will give you a good quote, and they will give you all the information you need and get you going. And you should definitely do it, because I've done it countless times. I'm going to do it twice here in the next handful of months again. You need to get going on that. So yeah, reach out to Big Top Ventures. They'll hook you up. Thanks, Big Top Ventures.
I think I'm going to get a pretty nice little check from Uncle Sam.
Oh,
so
maybe. We never know what's going on with
maybe
Uncle Sam.
I'll put
right
some
now.
of that towards, well, I just filed my taxes today. So
there you go. All right.
If the dollar amount that he's promising me is accurate, there could be some of that going towards a nice little trip. So I might have to send an email to Big Top Ventures LLC at gmail.com.
They'll hook you up, Ev, just like they'll hook our listeners up too. So yeah, again, thanks, Big Top Ventures.
Yeah. Appreciate it, guys. All right. Well, I brought the beer, and this is a beer that I referenced last week. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I referenced the name.
I think you either showed it to me, or I think you said it on the podcast.
Maybe I did, but I've looked at this beer. This is like squints at the pool, staring at Wendy Peppercorn for however long, and finally you do it. You just do it. You just go for it. You dive in the deep end, you drown, and she pulls you out of the water and
saves your life in many ways.
Yeah. So this beer has been just staring at me on the shelf for probably over a year. It's been like a while. Like, for as long as we've been recording the podcast, I can remember this beer sitting on the shelf at Hy-Vee.
That's crazy.
Hopefully not this exact beer.
Oh yeah,
that would be too long. But it's ReUnion's Mega Cake Stupid Dessert Sour.
Yeah, it says it's a blueberry, raspberry, mega purple, lactose, oats, cinnamon, and vanilla sour. So if that's not crazy, if that's not Mega Cake Stupid Dessert Sour, then I don't know what is. And maybe that says something about me, because you said you've been staring at this beer forever. We shop most of our beer at the same place.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you I've ever seen this can before. Maybe I just have looked at this amazing, crazy artwork, and it's so crazy that I've just tuned it out of my brain and totally looked over it. So if not for you, I probably would never have tried this. I'm kind of excited.
Well, let's pour this up. Let's see what it looks like, first of all. It actually kind of looks like, upon first pour, like one of our more recent beers. It kind of looks like the Big Grove What was the sour beer that we had from Big Grove a few weeks ago?
The Into the Woods?
Into the Woods,
yeah,
there you go.
That was just last week, wasn't it?
That was last week, yeah. Oh, it's, you probably can't see it on camera, but there's a ton of sediment in this. Like, it's hazy. It's not transparent at all. It's kind of purpley, which makes sense with, like, the blueberry and stuff, but there is, like, sediment for days.
Which is not a bad thing.
No.
It's just an unfiltered.
It's an unfiltered beer.
This is crazy. The more I think about this, it's crazy. I'm excited. We just need to dive in.
The smell test is pretty good too.
Yeah?
I'm excited.
Right. Skol.
Skol.
Whew.
That's pretty good.
Whew. Yeah, that's interesting.
I like that a lot. It's not that sour.
No, it's got tartness to it.
It's tart. It's kind of like a sweet tart, like a candy sweet tart almost.
Yeah. So
that's pretty good.
When I go for candy, I go for the chocolate stuff pretty much, or the caramel stuff.
I go for the sugary.
This is definitely in that sugary sweet stuff category.
Yes.
Which is fine. This is like a Skittle on steroids in a sour. There's nothing bad about it. I mean, it's not my typical beer of choice to go running after, but I mean, nothing about this is gross. It's very sweet, very candy-like. I think the name is very apt. Mega Cake Stupid Dessert Sour. That's a mouthful. And this beer, it's kind of like a party in a can.
I can taste everything in it. I can taste the blueberry raspberry. I can taste the oats and cinnamon, and I can taste the vanilla. You got a little bit of that cake like type of vibe to it.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. I like it. I'm gonna be honest. The reason it kept intimidating me at the store was because I was scared of it. Like, I was just like, I don't want to try that. And eventually we were gonna have to try it because we're running thin on Iowa beers at our local spot. So if you're out there and you know of some good Iowa beer, or if you want to send us some Iowa beer, let us know, because we'll definitely take you up on that offer.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
But ReUnion, this is a really good beer.
Yeah,
and one that I would try again.
To be truthful, I don't know if I'm going to actively seek this one out again. We've got a few we're going to have tonight. Like I said, there's nothing bad about this. It's really sweet. It's a sour. This is like definitely what I would think of as like the category of sours. I mean, again, it's not actually sour. It's like a sweet beer. But it's fine. I mean, I could see this being somebody's favorite beer.
Yeah. And I'm sure somebody out there loves it.
Yeah. So thank you for bringing it, Ev. I'm glad I've tried it. I probably won't actively seek it out again. But that's just me. I'm glad you really enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm going to enjoy the others.
And I'm going to enjoy the others as well. Did we say what the percentage is?
I looked on the can and I couldn't find it. So maybe a Google search might yield that. But it doesn't taste super boozy to me. So... yeah, I don't know. It's good. I like it. And I don't know, in the sweet category, I gravitate away from chocolate and more towards this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Before we move on, I do want to read the description because I just found it trying to find the ABV. Couldn't find the ABV, but the description is description pending. Too stupid to describe. Cake? Maybe. Sour? Yes. Mega purple? Probably. And that's it. That's all ReUnion says about this one. So
there you go.
It's an experience. It's a fun experience. I'm glad I'm doing it. Thank you, ReUnion.
Well, if you can get your hands on some Mega Cake Stupid Dessert Sour, you have to look at it every time because there's like no way to memorize that title. If you can get your hands on some, I would recommend it. Sounds like you would maybe recommend it once, but not twice. Yeah,
definitely try it. Definitely make sure it's something you want to try. Because again, there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing gross. It's somebody's favorite beer. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to end this segment here. And the next time you see us, we're going to be chatting with good friend of the show, Dustin Baker.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah.
So excited to have him back on. Who knows what we'll talk about? I'm sure a myriad of things will pop up in our discussion. It's always fun, though. Always enjoyable to have him on. So we're going to cut this short here and get to that content here in just a second.
Skol.
Skol.
All right, welcome back, Skol Hoppers. If you were watching rather than listening to us, you'll see a familiar face. We got friend of the show, Dustin Baker, here again. Thanks for coming back on, Dustin. It's been a minute, so I think early December was the last time you were on, and we had you and Yannick on, which was a really good time, and we kind of missed our early January time, but that's okay. Nothing good in Vikings world happened in early January, so here we are right before the Super Bowl. So yeah, thanks again for coming on. We're really excited.
Yeah, it's an honor to be back, and I think we were all deflated really a lot by the Rams game because I really didn't think the Vikings would use the final two games when it mattered the most to just disappoint, to have their worst two games. I did not foresee that coming. We're not immune to the Vikings doing shit like that, but I didn't think this team had it in them. So I'm glad to be back after the warts of that loss. We got about a month between us now, between that, and so we can preview the offseason. I'm also really enthused about sports because LeBron James is my guy, and the Lakers just had the sweet trade Saturday night to give him some life to maybe win him one more championship or two. So I'm super excited about sports in general because the Lakers got Luka Doncic.
Yeah, talk about, like, I don't know, in sports, a bigger trade before that. I mean, obviously Vikings fans know about the Herschel Walker trade, but like it feels like that level of trade, like multiple franchise altering pieces. Evan, I don't know if you followed that at all. But...
Oh yeah. Well, I would ask you, because you've probably followed it more than we have, Dustin. Is it a big, I mean, are the Lakers now championship contenders with Luka on their roster as opposed to not?
Well, to me, so I've been a LeBron fan since the jump, since 2003, when Michael Jordan retired from the Wizards. He was my guy, like most of the world was. And I needed a new guy. So I looked around the landscape of the NBA, and I was like, well, LeBron James is coming out. Let's check him out. And from the very first game, I was hooked. So I would tell you that until Saturday night, this Lakers experiment had grown stale. I did not expect them to win the chip this year. But I will tell you that Luka on this team gives me new hope and new life. The Celtics were probably the front runner to win it all. The Thunder are really good. But all of a sudden, there's an injection of change on the Lakers roster. And the way that we'll kind of look at it is if they don't get to the championship or win it, we'll say, well, yeah, they didn't have enough defense. They traded Anthony Davis. They didn't have a big man. However, if they win it somehow, we'll look at each other and be like, they had LeBron James and Luka Doncic. Of course they were going to win it. Exactly. So, that's where I'm at right now. I probably wouldn't put money on the Lakers to win it, but I am personally a lot more reinvigorated than I was last weekend. The Lakers, even without Luka, are playing quite well. They're like the 5th seed in the West. So that is my basketball spiel for the group tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say it still counts because the Lakers wear purple and gold, and they used to be in Minnesota. So we're still on track, Skol Hoppers. Don't worry. I did want to mention, too, not to sit in the terrible depression of the end of the 24 Vikings season, but isn't it just another thing on the list as most Vikings things ever for this very promising team that wasn't supposed to do anything at all to only lose to 2 teams all season, and it just happened to be back-to-back each time and when it mattered the most. That's again another most Vikings thing ever to happen. It's crazy.
It was perfectly symmetrical. They lost to the Lions, Rams, and then the Lions and the Rams, and I don't think there's an underlying good reason for it. Each loss was really different. In fact, the very first loss to the Lions, I walked out of the Vikings game excited. I was like, hey, we only lost by 2 points. Man, I was like, I've never walked out of this building enthused about a loss. And that feels like a million years ago now. Within the last 2 games, I cannot believe that Sam Darnold absolutely folded, crumbled, collapsed, capitulated. And I know it's not 100% his fault. He probably could have got a little bit more help from the interior offensive line. But that guy had seen blitzes throughout the season, and he had manhandled them personally. So I went back to the way that I was thinking about Darnold last March. So when they signed him, I was like, yay. I do think that he can be decent around the NFL. Hopefully he goes to the Seahawks, the Raiders, something like that. But you could put me on record. I do not want that guy back again, mainly because I know he's going to look great at training camp. I know he's going to be a preseason god. He'll probably play great for the regular season. But I don't want to wait a whole year to figure out, all right, is the guy going to implode in the playoffs? And then if he does, you've set the franchise back 2 years. So although I respect Darnold, I cannot believe what he did, generally speaking, for the Vikings. I am so ready for him to be gone. And just give me McCarthy and give me a normal backup, like Daniel Jones, since he's already kind of on the practice squad, or Nick Mullins again. There are so many backup quarterbacks that the Vikings can get because we have a quarterback whisperer.
Yeah, if we could pause and take the last 15 seconds of what you just said, starting with give me a normal backup, and then play, like send that clip back in time a year or even 2 years and be like, give me a normal backup like Daniel Jones. Like, can you imagine how Vikings Twitter would implode?
Yeah, well, A, me being a Daniel Jones guy would be really weird, and then B, Daniel Jones being just some moron who's a QB2. It's all how the mighty have fallen type of thing. But yeah, like I said, I don't have a huge like grievance with Sam Darnold. If they find a way to bring him back, of course, I'll find a way to support it. But you've got 4 years to get this right, gentlemen, before J.J. McCarthy would demand a giant contract if he's good in the first place. And I don't want to waste it on another year of, hey, we're letting our guy mature because Darnold won 14 games. I really hope they don't go down that avenue, and I don't think they will.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. We did have kind of an order of questions we were going to ask you, but it seems like we're naturally transitioning into like the fourth question we were going to ask you. Mm-hmm. So at an on-air production meeting, I feel like we should just flop things around here really quick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I don't know that there's really a bigger question, and I don't know that there has been a bigger question in Vikings offseason
since last year.
For like, well, no, for like a few years now. Like it's just been this kind of ongoing saga of who's going to be the quarterback and what's going to happen. Last year it was, okay, what's going to happen with Kirk? And this year it's, okay, Sam Darnold played really well, but he collapsed at the end. What's going to happen? So
yeah. So I guess the question we want to bring to you, Dustin, is you've told us what you want and a little bit about what you think will happen, but we've got 4 different scenarios, and I kind of want you to rank 1 to 4, 1 being most likely to happen, 4 being absolutely won't happen, what you think will happen. Not what I want or what you want, but like what probably will happen if you had to be right. So let me read off the scenarios and then you can kind of answer from there. So scenario 1, and these are all Sam Darnold. What happens with him, Sam Darnold? So scenario 1 is Sam Darnold is signed to a more than 1 year contract, 2, 3, 4 year contract for market value, whatever that is, to be the starter with the Minnesota Vikings. That's scenario 1. Scenario 2, Darnold is franchise tagged to be the starter specifically in 2025, and then who knows from there. Scenario 3 is Darnold is franchise tagged to be traded as a trade bait, and then scenario 4 is just Darnold leaves in free agency outright. So if you can remember what I said, maybe it's not super entertaining, but what you think actually will happen, not what we want to happen, but what do you think is most likely?
Yeah, this is my job, so I can. This is very entertaining for me. The least likely scenario of the 4 we've listed off is a nude, bare naked franchise tag on Sam Darnold, which would be like 1 year, $40 million. The reason I say that is because that's really expensive, and you can kiss your $60 million in cap space basically goodbye. And then we're back to where we were every offseason with Kirk, trying to find bargain bin guys like Marcus Davenport to make yourself Super Bowl contender. So the least likely option is them investing $40 million for 1 single season in Darnold when you have an affordable McCarthy who's hungry, who's saying all the right things. Which brings me to the second least likely scenario, moving up the ladder here, is a short-term extension for, let's say, 2 years and $62 million, and a lot of that guaranteed. If they really want to have it both ways, hedge their bets, I think this would lower the cost, so it's not $40 million, and it gives them that Green Bay Packers model where we roll with Darnold. You can hear in my voice how I'm excited I am about that. And like, God, if we were cruising or we would have played respectable against the Rams or Darnold took us to NFC Championship, this one I might even be agreeing with at this point, but nope, his collapse was too egregious for me. I think that would be number 2. The second most likely option to me would be the franchise tag and trade. The reason that I don't have this at number 1 is kind of twofold. I don't know what his trade price would be. A, because he collapsed, and then B, trade prices in sports are absolutely unpredictable. We just talked about the Luka Doncic trade. I don't know if Darnold could fetch a second or if a general manager would laugh in your face about that. I am done trying to predict trade prices and sound like I know what I'm talking about. So I don't think it's as easy as, hey, we're going to tag Darnold and we're going to talk to the Raiders and we're getting a second rounder, baby. Maybe it is that simple, but I doubt it. And then the Vikings have to weigh the risk of applying that bastard, the $40 million franchise tag, and then they're like, we're not trading for him. You're stuck with him, and you don't have any money for free agency. That feels like a little risky for my liking, and probably for the general manager's liking. So, and then there's the compensatory angle. If Darnold leaves, he will factor into that really complicated formula, along with Daniel Jones and whatever free agents may leave. So the Vikings have to decide, what are we going to get back for a compensatory if he walks versus how much can we squeeze out of the Seahawks or the Raiders or the Steelers via trade? Which leads me to the most likely option. The Vikings don't feel like a team that enjoys using the franchise tag because it's not really a beacon of the player culture that they've built and empowered through the last 3 seasons. So as a token of courtesy to Darnold, I'm going to guess they say, thank you. This was our original plan. You come in here, you ball out. We've already got our guy. You knew that. Go play for the Seahawks or the Raiders. Go get your bag. We've got McCarthy right here. Thanks for everything. That's the most likely scenario. If the Vikings were hard-nosed businessmen that we're gonna get the draft pick and franchise tag you, we don't care what you think, maybe I could see it. But let's face it, the Vikings don't really do things that way. I think the franchise tag trade thing dissipated after the final 2 games because he's no longer this oh my god commodity. He's Sam Darnold, who did. That's the thing that pains me the most, gentlemen, about those last 2 games is in front of back-to-back national audiences, the Vikings sucked. And on top of it, everybody who doubted Sam Darnold, Stephen A. Smith called him a virus back in September. Everybody that thought Darnold was a piece of shit was vindicated watching those last 2 games. And it felt like the whole season we watched meant nothing. That's what really bugged me the most, is that people that aren't in tune with the team were right. They watched the Vikings do Vikings things. They watched Sam Darnold turn into Sam Darnold. So the most likely outcome to me is he just walks away in free agency and the McCarthy era, thank God, begins.
Yeah, I tend to agree with everything. As late as the day before the Lions game, the last game of the regular season, I was advocating for the whole tag and trade scenario because at that point, Darnold was a first rounder. He was a guy that would get something crazy. But at this moment, I think he is a pumpkin. He turned back. He's better than he was a year ago, but not what we thought he was 5 weeks ago.
The reason that I complete agreement with you about the franchise tag and trade thing before the Lions and Rams game is we entered a territory for Vikings business management that said, would you be stupid if you don't use this? Will you be the laughing stock of the NFL if you let the guy walk and don't trade him? I think that is how you had to start to perceive this, because you'll look incompetent or malpractice if you let him walk. And I'm with you. I don't think that applies anymore because the guy looked like an utter turd.
Yeah, just absolutely awful. Who was the last guy the Vikings franchise tagged? Whether they signed him in the offseason. Was it Anthony Harris? Before
did they tag him? Yeah,
they did.
What was he good for? 2 seasons? Like really good?
Like 1.5 seasons, and then they tagged him.
Spielman hit him with that in 2019, was it?
Something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which adds to your point. They don't do that. I feel like they're smart, but this team as a whole takes care of people when it makes sense to take care of people. So
I got a follow-up question really quick. So if Darnold is as good as gone and JJ's the proverbial starter moving forward, the Vikings still have 3 other quarterbacks currently on the roster. What's your prediction? Who's going to fill that QB2 role and that emergency QB3? It's probably way too early to make that prediction, but...
No, not at all. I don't think so. It's cool that the Vikings have quarterbacks coming out their ears because they have a good head coach who knows how to foster them. Daniel Jones makes way too much sense. There had to be knowledge of forethought when they signed. They were the team that signed him after the Giants kicked him out or he asked for his release. I think that forged the relationship. I'm going to guess Daniel Jones comes back on that 1-year, $10 million deal that Darnold got. I would like to not have a quarterback competition in the summer, but if it's mandatory, then so be it. My money would be on Darnold because he just witnessed what happened to Sam Darnold minus the last 2 games, and like there's a reason that he chose the Vikings in the first place. Why not see it through? And in his mind, right now there's dudes like me on podcasts that are like, McCarthy is the real deal. I know he's going to be the real deal. But Daniel Jones isn't thinking that way. Like, he could be the quarterback in September for all we know. McCarthy could injure his leg again. So I think he has to look around and see what happened to Darnold and therefore nominate himself as the Vikings QB2. Other thing I want to say, in case I forget over these next 35, 40 minutes, whatever it is, I expect the Vikings to say all of this juicy shit about Darnold, like, oh, no, we want him back. I'm going to guess at press conferences they say that, or they leak the intel so that they can examine the trade market, but it's up to us to believe that or not. I don't know. Sometimes when I see the, hey, is Darnold coming back? Tom Pelissero said, hey, this thing is fluid. I think we're overcomplicating this. Are the Vikings really going to turn back on McCarthy after they just went through the Cousins era of good but not elite quarterback in favor of Darnold, who's going to give you a good but not elite quarterback and then make it really difficult to build out a roster? Like, I think we get too bogged down into thinking, like, what if they're going to hedge their bets? What if Darnold, turns out that he can play good in the playoffs next year? Like, I think that we overcomplicate it. When you hear guys like Thor Nystrom talk, it sounds like he really gets it, almost laughing at the notion of not starting McCarthy this year. They drafted him for a reason. Darnold did not ball out to the enough to negate McCarthy on the roster. He was getting there. But I think that we overcomplicated at times to think, hey, they can have their cake and eat it too by having Darnold back. I'm sure Kwesi Adofo-Mensah is elated to have this cap space, and you can kiss that bitch goodbye if you sign Darnold back for 2 years and $80 million or whatever it might be. So Daniel Jones is my long answer as the QB2.
Yeah, and I think we both kind of agree with that. Unless there was some unknown, holy cow, this rookie that was supposed to be a first rounder is suddenly available in the 6th round. Who cares about Daniel Jones? It's just a quarterback 2 spot. Stuff like that doesn't happen.
So one more follow-up question then. Does that mean Mullins is gone? Is he done? I mean, he's been on the roster for a handful of years now.
Yeah, Brett Rippon was re-signed as one of their first miniature orders of business. I think he is a damn good QB3, and I actually think Nick Mullins deserves to be a bona fide QB2 on some other team. I just assumed that Daniel Jones thing meant a little bit more than just having an extra insurance policy to Nick Mullins. So I am a Nick Mullins guy too. I love it when he gets in there and just throws for 400 passing yards.
We are too, yeah.
but I think that he'll be best served to be one snap away from a quarterback. If you operate under the pretense that Daniel Jones will probably get the nod this year. Otherwise, if we look up and we're doing your show May 2nd or something like that, and they have chosen McCarthy, Mullins, and Rippon, I won't complain. I'll be happy about it. Not everybody will, but I'll be just fine with that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a unique take, but I've been on record anytime I talk about Nick Mullins he is one of the best QB2s in the NFL, and QB2 is a legitimate position. I mean, you can't just be a really good QB2 and then automatically become a QB1. But I mean, we joke about it, all he does is come in and throw 25-yard passes to Aaron Jones for first downs, But I mean, there is something to be said about a guy that oh crap, we need 2 plays, and Nick Mullins, if he's a starter, he's probably going to throw 4 interceptions. But if he comes in for that, oh crap, 3rd down play because Sam Darnold twisted his ankle, you're okay and you can even call a pass play because Nick Mullins, at least, I don't know what it is, he seems unshakable when he's unexpectedly called upon.
He's totally fearless.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
All right, well, let's switch gears away from quarterbacks, which, I mean, honestly, that could probably dominate the entire offseason if we wanted it to.
It will.
But you had mentioned in your message to us a little bit ago, Cooper Kupp. He's on the market right now, and you made the comment that he almost makes too much sense for the Vikings. Explain your thoughts that way.
Sure. So from a fantasy football angle, I started daydreaming about him leaving the Rams in December or so because his target load kind of diminished. And if you're a fantasy football manager, you know all about that. And I got to thinking, like, there isn't a more Ramsey and Rams connection from the O'Connell era in Los Angeles than Cooper Kupp. He's going to be 32. We fully understand that the best part of his career is over, but these Vikings have been WR3 starved for like a decade minimum. And we've got accustomed to getting excited about KJ Osborne getting 600 yards or Jalen Naylor having a good block on a long touchdown. We should have a better standard for WR3 where the guy gets 700, 800 yards in a passing offense, 7, 8, 9 touchdowns. And hey, when Addison's hurt or Jefferson's down with a hamstring, that hey, you've got Cooper Kupp, who you certifiably know can move the sticks, or like Amari Cooper also, he's going to be a free agent. Right now, like we went from BC Johnson to Chad Beebe to like guys who wouldn't even be on an NFL roster. And then now we're excited because we had KJ Osborne and Jalen Naylor, but we can get better. And with Cooper Kupp, there is the glowingly obvious connection to Kevin O'Connell. The guy who won the Super Bowl MVP with Kevin O'Connell as the offensive coordinator, the offensive player of the year. And it just so happens that he is on the trade market. He's going to be traded. So you couple that connection to the Vikings head coach, plus the notion that Jordan Addison is probably going to be suspended for 2 or 3 games in September. I think it makes too much sense for Cooper Kupp to be on the Vikings roster. He can be the fringe WR2 when you need him. Like I said, this is not, me pounding home nostalgia or, hey, I want 3 deep. I just know that this is the perfect spot for him to wind down a pretty fantastic career, and Vikings fans would love him in a heartbeat. So mainly because of the built-in connection to Kevin O'Connell, I expect the Vikings to poke around the trade sweepstakes. And even though I just got done saying I don't know shit about trades anymore because every single one is different, I think Kupp can be got for a 4th rounder or so. And historically, the Rams are pretty good about eating a player some of the extra salary when they want to get rid of a guy. So I do think more than just a hot take or just something that, you tweet for the hell of it. I think Cooper Kupp to the Vikings makes a lot of sense for realism.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think your points are I was going to say the obvious points, but that makes it sound like, oh, you don't have any original takes. Obviously, you only think the obvious things. That's not what I'm saying. It's the right thought process, I think. Kupp to the Vikings, Kupp to KOC is the right thought process. But I'm sitting here trying to think, have there been too many players come from the Rams to the Vikings just because of that? Like I know Johnny Munt was he was the one that was a Ram. I think he was the first free agent signed once KOC was hired. And then Cam Akers was traded for, and then Cam Akers was traded for again. But other than those 2 guys, am I missing out on any other Rams or even other team?
A little bit. Brandon Powell.
Okay.
He was he took that touchdown against us to the house in 2021.
Oh, yeah.
That was the return,
right? Yeah.
And then there's always a couple of dudes who nibble around the Summer roster that O'Connell brings over, like Jonah Williams. Brett Rippon even has ties to the Rams. I'm not sure I don't think KOC was there. Maybe he was. It's kind of those ancillary guys. There was another one. There was a linebacker who made like last year's roster. I'll have to look up who it was. Usually it's like you're chilling on a June or July day and they sign some guy you've maybe heard of once or twice.
He's from Berger Hill guy.
Yeah. He's from the Rams background. I can't, man, it's going to bug me now. There is a linebacker that they signed in 2022 or 2023 that actually like started somewhere this year, but he was from those Rams. So yeah, he does like to kick the tires on those dudes, and this might be the best time to do it because a lot of those guys are probably getting old because that was 4 years ago. So yeah, there are signs of O'Connell doing that. And for the record, I do expect this free agent period to have Brian Flores do that as well. Whether it's Jerome Baker, who is an off-ball linebacker that could be a good depth piece, or Javon Holland. I would rather the Vikings pay Javon Holland to Cameron Bynum, but that's just me. So yeah, those tentacles from your team's leaders, that's a real thing in sports, and I think you'll see that from the Vikings during this free agency.
All right. Well, with all that in mind, you also brought up a few position groups that probably need some love in free agency. Probably the draft too, but more likely free agency, just because I think most Vikings fans at this point are okay with the fact that Kwesi seems to be better in free agency than the draft. And you pair that with a lot of free agent cap space and not a lot of draft capital right now. It kind of meshes up to, okay, let Kwesi do what he's going to do best. So with that in mind, you mentioned the cornerback group, probably just the whole defensive backfield in general. Inside offensive line, inside defensive line, and running back. Do you have, you mentioned a couple of names a minute ago, do you have like a golden gift, like whoever it would be via trade or free agency at all, that could be available out there that would instantly help the Vikings and bring them to be a better team than a 14-3 team last year?
Yeah, there are a bunch. And then, I mean, I could just rattle off the big name free agents, but they're, of course, not going to get all of them. I think Bleacher Report had a really sweet idea. They talked about a trade of a third rounder to the Colts for DeForest Buckner, who is one of the most consistent defensive tackles on the planet. I don't know why the Colts would want to get rid of him, but evidently Bleacher Report had that out there. I would love that, even though he's, I think, 30, 31. D tackles can usually go till 34, 35. Calais Campbell can tell you all about that. So that trade, Linval's still playing. Let's see. I would love for them to get a new center. Drew Dahlman from the Falcons is like the hottest commodity at that spot. Falcons fans say he ain't going anywhere. My good friend Yannick Eckhart, who's been on the show, he said he'd be really surprised if the Vikings let Bradbury walk, because you're going to probably have a rookie quarterback, and that's important to have the communication down. I, of course, am intrigued by Trey Smith, a guard, but I'm hesitant to believe that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah will spend $21 million on a guard when he could get two guards for that price. But I know Vikings fans have circled Trey Smith as their number one with a bullet target. You could see him in the Super Bowl on Sunday. So Drew Dahlman would be the most fascinating to me because I want to get rid of Garrett Bradbury for one reason. I don't want to go up against the Giants or the Packers and know that we're playing Dexter Lawrence or Kenny Clark and just know you're cooked. We shouldn't have to feel that way about an offense-first football team because Kevin O'Connell's the head coach. I like Bradbury as a dude. I won't bitch that much if he comes back, but I would love for us to finally have a center that's not going to get devoured by Dexter Lawrence. So I think Drew Dahlman is my top target. At cornerback, DJ Reed, Asante Samuel, Charvarius Ward. I would kind of prefer that they sign a cornerback because we can never get that right in the draft. We haven't drafted a good one since Trey Waynes 10 years ago. And then my final soapbox is, although I like Aaron Jones and I thought he did a wonderful job by his standards, he's not going to get any better. And based on like his name, he's going to get one of those lifetime achievement contracts of like 1 year and $7 million. And I would rather the Vikings give like Javonte Williams, who's 25, 1 year and $4 million, and then also draft a rookie running back because this class is so deep. But we've learned that a prerequisite for Kevin O'Connell's offense at running back is a guy who can pass block. Otherwise, you're Ty Chandler and you get demoted to RB3. So Javonte Williams is a fabulous pass blocker. So is Najee Harris. So is Jalen Warrens. Those Steelers boys know what they're doing. I want the Vikings to get a decent veteran running back that is not 31 years old like Aaron Jones will be next season. And then, oh my gosh, if we can, with that third round compensatory pick that we got because Kirk left, number 97 or so, they're still going to be able to get a damn fine halfback, whether that's one of the Ohio State guys, Devin Neal from Kansas. There's going to be options. So one of my biggest asks is once and for all, get the personnel right at running back, maybe along the way, improve the offensive line in the interior trenches, and maybe we could flirt with a top 10 run offense, and I guarantee you that the offense would look fantastic if you saw that Aaron Jones from the first few weeks of September when he was cooking. If the Vikings offense can do that all the time, it might be damn near unstoppable.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't mention Cam Akers' name at all in the last few minutes.
Yeah, no, he better be back as RB3 because I don't want to trade for him again in October. Yeah. And I think he will. But if I say Cam Akers in a forum like this, it kind of assumes that he'll be back as one of the solutions. I like him to be an ancillary guy. If they really wanted him as the RB2 behind the rookie running back that they draft, great. I do like Cam Akers. He earned all of my respect when he caught that pass against the Packers. So, yeah, I do want Akers back, but to me, that was more in an RB3 capacity. And we know a running back will get hurt, and then he'd be instantly promoted to RB2 for however many weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all good points.
So, next question here. On kind of the opposite side of the table, we've been talking about all of these external guys possibly making their way in. The Vikings had a laundry list of guys, have currently, present tense, a laundry list of guys that are potentially on their way out. Who's most likely to leave and who's most likely to come back? We kind of did this on an episode a few weeks ago, kind of talked about, on that list of unrestricted free agents that the Vikings have currently, who we thought was most likely to return and then most likely to leave. What do you think?
Yeah, there are 25 free agents, so almost half the football team. That's why there's so much cap space, boys and girls, is because 25 dudes are about to hit free agency. I think that Byron Murphy is the most precious commodity and probably the most likely to be back of the big names. He said last June, I think he was talking to Darren Wolfson of KSTP, he said he loved it here. He wants to be back. And he sounded genuine when he said it. And thankfully for his sake, he got to the Pro Bowl. He had 6 interceptions. He's going to get a sweet contract. I think out of sheer roster need, that Byron Murphy is the most likely to come back, A, for continuity, and then B, he wants to be here. And then C, if you don't get him back, it's Mekhi Blackmon, Dwight McGlothern. That's what you got heading into the offseason. So I feel like with this bonanza of cap space, that Murphy is the most likely to be back of the big names. I'm torn on Aaron Jones. That one can go either way. He also said he wants to be back. All of these players love the Vikings culture.
Yeah.
If I had to gamble on it, I'd say Darnold is gone. And then Cameron Bynum is like the big circle-it one where I just don't know how that one's going to go. Because of his large persona with the celebrations and the movie connections that he always likes to do, I think he has a bigger name and lovability than his actual performance. I think he's good, but I don't know that he's worth $15 million good.
Yeah.
And I can't decide if the Vikings will bank on him for continuity. This regime did not draft him. That's the one that I can't necessarily predict, but I will reiterate, if the Vikings have a puncher's chance at getting Javon Holland, I would rather have Javon Holland. I think he's a more complete safety. And all of this will be complicated as well if Harrison Smith retires, because then you're looking at Josh Metellus and Jay Ward as your 2 safeties. So safety is a sneaky roster need if Bynum departs and Harrison Smith retires. And I don't know if that can be solved in the draft since you only have, 4 picks altogether. I don't know if I left anybody out. Dalton Reisner, I'm sure in May we'll decide that we want him back because nobody ever wants him in March or April for some reason.
Did you mention Cam Robinson?
And then there's honestly, Ryan. And then it's Ryan Wright. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Am I forgetting any ginormous? Shaq Griffin will probably be back, and he's the type of guy that you sign back, and then when you enter the draft, you have him there in case the board goes funky. Because he's a spot starter, so to speak. He started most of this season. I think I got him most covered. I don't know if I'm forgetting anybody big.
Yeah, I think there's also precedent too for a guy like Byron Murphy because Kwesi seems to like to double down on guys that have rewarded Kwesi. I'm thinking of TJ Hawkinson. It took he cost quite a bit in draft capital, and then he played well, and Kwesi, I think, liked to say that, we brought this guy in, he played well for us, and because of that, we're rewarding him with a big contract. I think Byron Murphy, he came to Minnesota kind of as what we would call a Kwesi guy, like a buy low type guy, good upside, but doesn't cost a ton, not super cheap, but doesn't cost a ton. And so this past year, he played well. So I think Kwesi, not to say anything bad about it, but kind of stroking his own ego and trying to say hey, I am a good GM. I signed a guy, and you know what?
Mhm.
Because of that, I'm re-signing him because I obviously knew what I was talking about. So it'll be interesting. I think TJ Hawkinson might be the only use case for that thought process so far, because all the other big contracts were brought in pre-Kwesi, and like Jefferson and Darisaw. I'm trying to think who else has gotten a big contract after Kwesi has come in.
Well, normally we'd be talking about that right now, but the 2022 draft class was so bad that we don't want anybody back from that. But I kid you not, the here and now is when we'd be talking about extensions for Lewis Seen, Andrew Booth, and those guys. But unfortunately,
Super Bowl contender Lewis Seen. Don't forget about that.
There just weren't any guys from that draft class that even remotely warrant an extension.
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned it a minute ago, but I mean, Cam Robinson, he seems like he's probably a foregone conclusion that he's going to get however many $7, $8, $9, $10 million from some other team. But if he has ability to jump inside and potentially solve an inside offensive line issue with a guy that's already been in the building for half a season, I'm not against that. I think that could be a good idea if it works. You know, some guys can't jump inside. Also, that gives you some flexibility for a guy that we don't know when Darisaw is going to come back. And if you have to overpay a little bit in a year where you have a ton of cap space, this is assuming Sam Darnold gets his big payday from somebody else, maybe it behooves you to pay a little bit more for the insurance policy of Cam Robinson, and then let him go after a year or two.
Yeah, it kind of comes down to whether or not Robinson gets offers from the Chiefs or the Browns for like
which 15, he will. Somebody's going to pay
million
him more.
or $7 million. If it's in that below $10 million, then he would be an option to bring back. And then I never know. Like Bryant McKinney, I did a show with him for 4 years, and he would scoff.
Yeah, that show was really good until recently.
He would scoff at the idea of a tackle playing guard, but then I talked to Walter Rouse on my show last summer, and he's like, hell yeah, man, I'll do whatever you need me to do. So I never know if you can just flip Cam Robinson over to guard and everybody's happy, or if he's like McKinney, it's like, are you nuts? Why would I do that?
Well, do you remember Babatunde Ayagbusi when he came in? I don't know, however many years ago. I think he was famous for saying like, "Hey, if the Vikings need a kicker, I'll be the best kicker they've ever had." So, I mean, I'm sure Walter Rouse was being genuine when he said he would totally jump inside if asked. But like, that's also kind of a company line too. I mean, if the Vikings called me, I'd try to be the best. Out of shape, too small guy on the field and probably die out there, but I'd try.
Well, one more question here, and then we'll wrap things up here. Any other like uncovered little gems in this offseason that we're overlooking? Anything that like we've covered a lot? We've covered quarterbacks, Cooper Kupp, some of the interior offensive and defensive line positions. The defensive backfield is a big need. The running back position is a big need. Is there anything else that we're missing that the Vikings should probably take care of this offseason, whether that's in the draft or free agency?
I think we hit on almost everything. If they don't subscribe to my Cooper Kupp theory, there are a litany of WR3s that can get got this offseason. And we talked about this all year last year, like Hunter Renfrow over and over, and they just said, nope, no thanks. So I'm not sure if they'll do that, but Stephon Diggs, he's a free agent. If you go pull up, if you Google the best free agent wide receivers out there, there are like 15 guys that could be a Vikings WR3. And I'm going to continue to bring that up because I do think the Vikings can get better than Jalen Naylor at WR3. And then in terms of the draft, I haven't decided. I think I have to see free agency first to figure out what my official endorsement is of the 24th pick. I do think they'll trade back once or twice to get some picks back. But if you want Minnesota to finally upgrade at defensive tackle, you're going to have options at 24. It kind of comes down to if you're like me and you want a 3 technique, like a guy who's going to get into the backfield, Walter Nolan would be your guy from Ole Miss. If you want a thick run stopper, Tyleik Williams from Ohio State is your type of guy. I've done some homework, talked with Yannick Eckhart about this, and Nolan is a disruptor. And Tyreek Williams is a type of, line solidifier that, you're not letting your tailback get through here. So I want a Kevin Williams type because we haven't had one since 2013, the last season Kevin Williams played. So right now I've warmed up to the idea of them spending their 24th pick on Walter Nolan. So that would be, I guess, a gem that I would say to keep an eye on. But I will reiterate that it's going to be a really fun draft because I firmly believe the Vikings will come out of it with a running back. And we haven't had a shiny new running back since Dalvin Cook. And we're talking 8 years ago now. Whoever the Vikings draft at running back, so long as it isn't some moron in round 7 or something, we're going to get super...
McBride was pretty fun. Okay?
He looked like a fullback in that preseason game. I'll never forget that. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. I don't think anything was. He was just slow. No. Yeah. But whether it's Devin Neal, Amario Hampton, Travion Henderson, Quinton Judkins, whatever running back the Vikings get, we're going to be really excited about them because we haven't had one rookie in 8 years. And I'm going to guess with J.J. McCarthy under center, they're going to want to run the ball, more so than resting on their laurels with Kirk or Darnold and flinging it 40 times a game. So keep an eye on that running back strategy and pick because that guy is going to touch the ball more than anybody not named McCarthy for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Do you think Ashton Genty and Caleb Johnson will both be gone before the Vikings have a chance to look at them?
Genty, I believe, will be gone for sure. I can't see him getting past the Cowboys. What I don't want to happen is that guy to go to the Bears, and then we have to worry about him for 5 years. Now that Ben Johnson's the coach there, that's in play. It really gets on my nerves. But no, Genty... If the Vikings, if Genty got to 24 and the Vikings didn't pick him or trade it out, that would be more egregious than the Kyle Hamilton gate from 2022. So I would love Ashton Genty, but I also am of the camp that you shouldn't trade up to get running backs. And then Caleb Johnson is probably more realistic or more of a wild card at 24. There could be a team like the Lions and Jahmyr Gibbs who just shock you and grab Caleb with the 12th, 13th, 14th pick. But more realistically, Caleb will be there. I just don't know if the Vikings will have a first-round grade on him. But no matter what, we're gonna do shows, gentlemen, being excited about the running back. That's how great this class is. I mean, we're talking deep as hell. Like 30 running backs could be chosen.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. I mean, I'm always if I had one thing to live by on if I was a GM, I would say hashtag don't pay running backs. But I'd draft one in the first round if he's worthy of it all day because they're cheap. I mean, and then you use them up for 5 years and then maybe give them one more year and then let them go. Well, unless you're the Giants and then you let go of a 2,000-yard rusher.
If you're right, Dustin, the market for running backs kind of flips where you had a supply problem before and now that's not a problem anymore. The supply is there and now you maybe don't have to pay a running back a ton of money.
And it's funny because they just spent the last year kind of getting their respect back. All these teams took the plunge with Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley and it really, really worked out. J.K. Dobbins was a nice gamble.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry for sure. And now we're about to dump 20, 30 new ones into the system who are pretty darn good. So I was just starting to feel good about running backs getting their respect, mainly because Saquon Barkley's in the Super Bowl. But we shall see if the market gets flooded by all of these dudes.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we should probably talk Super Bowl before we wrap everything up. I know you talked about it earlier, but I don't know if you gave an official prediction. I think you said you wanted the Chiefs to win. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're old at this point. That was 40 minutes ago. But what is your official prediction for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, my light just went out here, so you'll have to forgive me.
It's all good.
My official prediction for the Super Bowl is the Chiefs 31-27. Last year, I thought the Ravens would be able to beat the Chiefs in the postseason, and they didn't. And that proved to me that the Chiefs are somewhat inevitable. I am not one of those people that thinks the Super Bowl sucks because the Chiefs and the Eagles are in it, and I hate the Eagles and Chiefs are so stale. I understand those arguments, but I believe these teams deserve to be here. And ultimately, I'm not going to I've said this to you guys before. I'm not going to wake up Monday morning and be the guy who picked against Patrick Mahomes. So I think the Chiefs win in one of their customary thrillers.
Yeah, I think you've been famous for saying for as long as you've been talking to us now, which is over a year. Can you believe it's like a year and a half that you've been coming on our show? Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
But every time it comes up, you say, "Man, I can't bet against the Chiefs." You said every time I bet against the Chiefs, they prove me wrong and like hilariously prove me wrong. So until they prove me right, like I can't bet against them. So I tend to agree with you. I think the Chiefs are going to pull it out. Also, the Eagles have entered Saints territory for me, where I'll be. The Vikings could beat the Eagles every year for the next 50 years, and I would still hate the Eagles. Just like I'll never get over 2009 and the Saints. Every time the Saints lose, I'm happy. And it's more so for the Eagles fans and the famous one that got canceled over being mean to Packer fans and just stuff like that. You see the videos of them walking the streets and like just berating fans of other teams that have the audacity to go to their stadium. Just because of Eagles fans, because I'm sure the players and the front office, as much as Nick Sirianni kind of looks like a jerk, I'm sure the players, everybody's good people in Philadelphia, but the fans, them and Lions fans, I hope they never see their team win again just because they're awful. So Chiefs for me, go Chiefs.
I'm definitely neutral on this game. I really don't care, and it's the two teams that I didn't want to see in the game.
Yeah, I think we were all rooting for a Buffalo Washington Super Bowl, and that didn't happen.
So I'm definitely with the rest of America on that one, and I'll watch it, but uninterestedly.
All right, Dustin, before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug, anything you want to point out, any new stuff you got going on, or old stuff anyways?
VikingsTerritory.com is where we write all day about the offseason. Vikes Now, get stuff published about 4 or 5 times per week. And then Dustin Baker on Twitter. You guys should have me back on like 3 or 4 weeks from tonight because we will be on Free Agents Eve. We'll be like a week away. And by that time, I'm sure we'll have indications of whether or not Darnold's coming back, who they're going to let test the free agent waters. So if you pencil me in like 4 weeks from tonight, we'll have a pretty exciting show because free agency, to me, I'm in a very severe minority. To me, free agency is more exciting than the draft. But I know that isn't shared by everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially with. I think I'm in the majority in thinking Kwesi, we trust him way more in free agency than in the draft. If he traded a first round pick for a young elite player, I'd be perfectly fine with that just because he hasn't proven that he can do anything consistently amazing in the draft. Let's hope JJ McCarthy proves that point wrong. And then Dallas Turner, once he gets his opportunity, let's hope he proves that point wrong. But yeah, free agency, I'm in the same boat as you, Dustin. I'm super excited for that. It's just recording right before it starts is so dangerous. We were recording an episode of the Skol Hop the night before Sam Darnold was signed. And I think we even I was listening back to it today. We laughed about it. Okay, it could be Sam Darnold.
Oh, really?
And then 3 hours later, he signed with the team. And it's we hadn't even released our episode yet. So it's a dangerous time to put out recorded content.
But we should do it about a week in advance. So that would put us at March 4th or March 5th or something like that.
Sounds great.
All right, gentlemen.
All right. Well, thanks again, Dustin, for having us on. Evan, having us on. We have you on. Thanks again for coming on. Evan, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
We appreciate you coming on. It's always a blast.
Yep. We'll talk to you in a month, fellas.
Yep, we'll reach out to you. We'll get that scheduled. So thanks again.
Yep, later.
All right, guys. Welcome back. Thanks for hanging out with us as we were able to chat with Dustin Baker for the first time in a long time.
First time this year, 2025. It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dustin, for coming back on. It's always great. I am kind of surprised. We spent a lot of time talking about Cooper Kupp, and it was a good conversation. I'm surprised we never mentioned good old Adam Thielen's name.
His name was rattling around in the back of my head, and I had this impulse to throw that out there, but we weren't really kind of making our way that way in the conversation, so I let it go. But I'm with you there, and boy, he's out there, and I know he's in his last year of his contract with the Panthers, but
it's an expensive contract. I wouldn't be shocked to see Adam Thielen get on the market. Not that he doesn't deserve all the money that he's set to make in the next season, but they might go elsewhere.
And maybe he takes the hometown discount and says, yeah, you know what, I want to end my career where I started it, and
Maybe. I'd be okay with that as long as it wasn't too pricey or it didn't cost too much.
I think he fits in that wide receiver 3 category, kind of like what Dustin was talking about. Like the Vikings haven't had that true wide receiver 3, and I mean he was the wide receiver 2 for so long. When
wide receiver 1, really,
he was, and then when JJ got on the scene, he happily, I think, fit into that 2 role and played it really well too, because he was still really dynamic. I still think he has a little bit of juice left in him.
Oh yeah,
it would be fun and it would be redeeming for the jersey that you got me last year. To see him in purple once again.
He'd have to take that 19 back from Brett Ripien. But
I think that'd be pretty easy.
Well, that would be a fun thing to talk about. I would spend a whole episode talking about that, because I don't think he has been a Viking at all for a single minute of the Skol Hop's existence.
I think you're right.
Yeah. I think he was let go right before we started recording in early 2023. So that would be fun to talk about.
Agreed, for sure. Well, maybe that happens. Maybe it doesn't. We'll see. But one thing's for sure, we had some pretty good beer tonight.
Yeah, we did. I was really surprised by this one. I think initially it kind of hit me as like really sweet and kind of tart, but definitely a sour. The name alone, what's the name? I can't remember.
I got to read it off the can still because it's 5 words and I just don't have the attention span to memorize it. It's ReUnion Brewery out of Iowa City. Mega Cake Stupid Dessert Sour.
Yeah.
And again, like I said at the beginning of the episode, this beer has been kind of staring me down at the store for the better part of a year. Like it's just been sitting there and it's just been tempting me. Like, pick me up,
just
buy
give
me,
a try,
bring me home. Let's try this. And so finally I did it. And I said that I would do it last week on episode 77. So here we are. I'm a man of my word.
Yep.
We did it. We came. We saw. We conquered. And I'd buy this again. It was pretty good.
So that's the thing. I think because earlier, before we talked to Dustin, we tried this and I said, I don't know. I'm probably not going to like purposely pick this one up again, but I'm surprised that I like it. I think what's more accurate is if we were at ReUnion Brewery or somewhere else that had a lot of ReUnion beers and I'd had a couple, but I wanted something different, maybe not another hazy IPA. If I saw this on the list, I could see myself getting one or 2. I don't know if I'd ever get like a 6-pack just for myself because it's not my category of beers, but I wouldn't be mad if somebody gave me one, or if like, I just ordered 1 or 2, that'd be fine. This is a fine beer. The flavors are great. It doesn't say it's a smoothie sour, but it kind of gives that feel to it.
Functions that way. Yeah. Like there's a ton of sediment. It's almost like they just like juice the blueberries right into the,
which is fine. I mean, kettle. An unfiltered beer isn't always bad. Like this works. This weirdly works. And for someone like me that loves a dark beer or definitely a hazy IPA, this one, again, while it's not my category of beers, it works. And if somebody said this was their favorite, like I said earlier, I'd believe them and I could see why.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
It's really easy drinking. It's not the like super tart sour. It's got a little bit of that tartness to it, but it's not going to make you, pucker your lips and that sort of thing. So really good. I enjoyed it. I'll definitely get this again, probably because my wife will want to try it.
Yeah.
And I think she's a little jealous that we didn't get enough for her to try, but
that's all right. You make it up to her. Valentine's Day is coming up.
Yeah.
We'll
get her some.
Man, you know what else is coming up? I'm going to join you in the area of almost mid-30s in the next couple of days.
Yeah, so. That's true. Yeah, 34.
It's if you're 34 or above, let us know. Is that a good year? I guess, Evan, you can let me know if that's a good year. But a
lot of people I work with are like, man, you're still so young. And I'm like, no, I'm in my mid-30s now.
Yeah, my back hurts when I wake up.
Yeah. My back hurts just from sitting in this chair for an hour.
Yeah, it's better than those child's chairs from a few weeks ago.
That's definitely true. Well, let's wrap things up here. Before we do, where can people find us?
Yeah, we're everywhere. Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Blue Sky, if you've abandoned Twitter. Facebook, Instagram. Our own website, theskolhop.com. Send us an email at...
TikTok survived the new year, so we're still there.
Yeah, we're still there. 4,700 followers on TikTok. That's kind of crazy.
It's awesome.
But yeah, if you want to send us an email, that is theskolhop@gmail.com. We still have stickers that we would absolutely give away and mail out to you if you send us an email. We got a couple versions of stickers too. So
we do.
Yeah, we're everywhere. If you just type in the Google machine, the Skol Hop, you will find us. I promise.
Yeah, hit us up. Let us know. We're doing our best to stay connected with people out there. It's tough. We both work during the day and that sort of thing. But yeah, if you send us a message or drop a comment on anything, Spotify, YouTube, a Facebook post, an Instagram post, whatever, we'll do our best to get back with you. Yeah. And if you want a sticker, let us know. Yeah. And if you can hook us up with a mailing address, we will mail it and we'll pay for the postage.
Another thing too, just kind of soft letting our listeners know, we're going to hopefully this off season, because NFL off season can be a quiet time. We're going to try to release a few episodes that are a little bit different than our normal just talking head episodes. A little storytelling, little history, little outside the box. We have potentially a beer that we're gonna brew here in the next few weeks. That's not a potential thing. Like, you were just texting with friend of the show Forrest. Yeah. He's got the ingredients. Yep. We are brewing it. In fact, episode 79 will be a little preview to the Skol Hop Brew 2.0. Yeah, just this coming week.
Yep. So next week, be on the lookout for that. If you're into beer, home brewing, anything like that, we're going to have Forrest on. Hopefully he's able to bring some of the ingredients that we're going to brew with. We'll talk through some of that. We'll kind of maybe compare and contrast last year's beer that we brewed to this year's beer that we're going to brew. Yeah. And then, of course, episode 80 is going to be all about the brew, and we're going to be
the brew hop.
Yeah,
not the brew tour, the brew hop.
The brew hop. Yeah, we'll be on location, probably in your garage.
It's got to be in Iowa,
unless it's too cold.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see what the weather's like. If we need to relocate, we might have to do that. But yeah, we'll be somewhere in Iowa, probably your garage.
Yep.
Brewing, and we'll try to capture that and kind of go through the process. I think at one point last year we just kind of circled up some lawn chairs and sat down and talked anything and everything football. That was before JJ McCarthy was even a forethought of the Vikings.
It was just beginning. Maybe he could be a second round pick. That's what we were talking about last year.
And sure enough, here we are, and he's the perennial first round pick and the future of the franchise. So who knows what we'll talk about this year and how that could affect the Vikings' future. But I'm excited about the next couple of weeks, because we're gonna do a follow-up episode too. Yep. So post brew, we'll have Forrest on one more time back here at the desk, and we'll talk about our experience with the brew, talk about like all the different things we smelled and tasted while we were brewing, because that's an important part too of the brewing process, is just being able to kind of smell and taste things along the way as you craft something to drink.
And while we're brewing, we'll be drinking a beer or two, because the beer you brew doesn't count unless you drink a beer while you're brewing.
That's absolutely right. So Iowa beer, of course.
Yeah, of course.
It's always Iowa beer for us. But yeah, be on the lookout for like probably the next 3 episodes. Those are going to be focused on brewing this next batch of the Skol Hop beer.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it. Looking forward to it.
Well, episode 78, it was great. We got to talk to Dustin for the first time in a while. I had a lot of fun. Great beer. Maybe the best episode yet. Skol.
Skol.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures, step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop.